Yo, what up, DJ homies? We're doing a crazy live stream right now. I have this wireless camera going with this wireless mic. But I want to do a tutorial today about how to use your MacBook Pro. So, this bad boy right here. And if you're a DJ in 2025 now, Happy New Year, everybody. How do you DJ with a MacBook Pro, but also how do you use it for a studio setup like what I have here for live streaming or for preparing your music or for whatever kind of other work you do on your machine. So, I want to talk about connectivity for using one machine for all of your DJ purposes or using two machines where you have the MacBook and I have another desktop here that I use for separate live streams. And also, we have the DJ setup, and I want to talk about how to do interconnectivity for your DJ setup using USB hubs like this, but also, you know, these USB hubs here, which ones are good, which ones are bad. Most MacBook Pros only have two USB ports, and so that could be a problem depending on how many things you need to connect. So today I want to talk about how we can connect all of this. I have all this shit wired in, including all of this to this MacBook. So we'll jump right into it. Basically, let's say you want to run a secondary screen like this one here, right? I have a secondary screen, and I could also use the iPad as a secondary third screen, using continuity, which is pretty sick. So if you have a MacBook Pro and you have an iPhone, I think the most legit way to do this is to use your iPhone as a camera, which is what I'm doing right now. I have an iPhone mounted on a thing, and I'm using it for the camera. And that just works in Mac OS, the newest Sequoia. The iPad just works as a secondary screen. So if you got an iPhone, if you got an iPad, if you got a MacBook, you really don't need anything. Everything is already wireless and it's good to go. But then comes the issue of USB connectivity. So I'll show you guys what I have. I have one of these old school cinema displays that came from the MacBooks that used to use MagSafe. This one's quite old, probably like 2014 or something. We'll take a look at the back real quick. See if you guys get a glance of the ports. So these screens operate on Thunderbolt, and you can see it has 3 USB ports, Ethernet, and FireWire. So if you can get an adapter for it, and the adapter that I'm using is this Thunderbolt to USB-C adapter directly from Apple. The best adapters to use for your MacBook are going to come directly from Apple. I would steer clear of all the third-party stuff as far as adapters go. But go ahead and get yourself one of these Thunderbolt 2 to USB-C adapters. And then if you want one of those, which is MagSafe to USB-C, and you can see it going here for my power delivery input on my hub. So if you only have 3 USB devices, let's say a sound card like this one, a MIDI controller like one of these guys over here, just like a simple setup, then that'll do it for you. And these screens still look pretty good, and they're really cheap. I mean, I found this one for free on the street. I'm sure I looked on Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. These things are going for like no more than $60, $70. They're hella cheap, and you can still use your M1 MacBook Pro. Anything with USB-C will still work with it as long as you get that adapter. So that's one way to do it, and that'll solve all your issues right away. And then you can dock into your home studio and take your laptop for DJing. So that's one real easy way to do it. Another easy way to do it is, if you don't have one of these things, is to get a USB hub. So I've got this one that's USB-C to multiple ports, and it has a little HDMI on there. And so that can send it to a monitor. So if you have like a third-party monitor, like for example, like one of these or a TV or something, you can always run a third-party monitor and connect it using a hub, and then connect all your peripherals using your hub. And that's where we get into the weeds. So I want to talk about what the weeds are as far as USB hubs go. So here I have 4 USB hubs that I've tested, and it's really important. I'll show you in the computer what it looks like to have a USB hub that works properly. But basically, all of these right here, at the beginning, I've got one of the more popular ones. It's got HDMI. It says it has a USB 3.0, SD card, power delivery input, USB-C, and it's got an Ethernet port. So this particular hub here is a lie. If you open up Device Manager or the computer system report, you'll see that it's a straight up lie. None of it is USB 3.0. The USB-Cs don't actually work at the speed that they're advertised, and it can't do more than one thing at once. So if you've got 2 USB devices hooked up to it, and then you connect the HDMI, it doesn't work. All the devices don't work at the same time. So there's a bandwidth issue on it where it doesn't work. Then there are these type of little USB hubs, and those are also lame because they just have one USB cable that goes to them, and they don't provide any power or anything, and they really suck. And if the wire even wiggles a little bit, it'll cut off. And then you've got the ones USB-C to normal USB-C. That one seems to work okay, but it will cut off if you wobble it. And then we've got several different brands. Some of them have braided cables. Some of them have this and that. There's a lot of problems with all of these. I've tested like basically all the ones that have ever been made. I bought a bunch of them, and they all have some kind of issue when you're trying to run DJ gear through it. It's important to note that if you're going to DJ with a USB hub, that's totally different. We'll talk about the necessary requirements for DJing with a USB hub, kind of like this one. But as far as for studio use, I would stay away from all of these. There is one that works though, and that's going to be this guy here, the U Green. This one is really cheap. It's like, I don't know, $25, and I can confirm that I can DJ with it while doing HDMI streaming out. It's this one that I'm using here now. I can use power delivery and USB-C and USBs for MIDI, and all of it works fine all the time. So if you want a reliable one, I'll put a link in the description. It's the U Green. You can find it on Amazon or eBay or whatever. So yeah, I use that one for my studio. Along with a display, and that's what'll let me get MIDI for this keyboard. I have another MIDI interface device here, and I've got a hard drive connected there. I've got this MIDI controller, this sound card, that MIDI controller, and this Ableton controller. So I have a bunch of MIDI controllers, a third display that's an iPad, my main display, and of course the MacBook Pro display. And then I've got these wireless peripherals here because when you sit down, you don't really want to be using the trackpad, you know. So when I go into studio mode, I have this dope Bluetooth wireless mouse from Apple that just works good. Like, it just always works. It's never failed me. I got to charge it once in a while, but other than that, they're legit. So yes, that is how you would run your studio setup. Now, there's an issue where if you want to DJ and record your set, then that's up to your PC, up to your laptop. How much power do you have? Typically, the M1 MacBook Pro, which is the one I have here, is powerful enough to maybe DJ and record your set using this program, OBS Studio. But I find that I run into issues when trying to do that. So I run a secondary machine here for when I record my DJ sets. I have a Windows machine, and then I feed my video DJ set to these cards back here. You can see those guys there, the Elgatos. And then, so I feed my HDMI feed from my MacBook Pro Serato DJ output to one of those guys, and it captures it and sends it to OBS. Then I send my audio. I send my audio from my Serato mixer, so directly from the mixer, you can see here, directly the wires coming out like this, and if you follow it, it comes along the ground, and it eventually goes up to this big mixer board, which this audio interface is connected to, which then captures my mix on the Windows machine. But I'll make a totally separate video for how to do a video DJ live stream at a later date. Right now, I just want to talk about connectivity. So yeah, those are some of the things I noticed. Another thing I noticed, your cables are hella important. If you have a bunch of booty cables, it just doesn't work right. So on a lot of the cables, you have to check to make sure that the tip of the wire is actually blue and that it's a USB 3.0 or 3.1 or 3.2 cable. But I just go with the DJ Tech Tools Chroma cables. I use these guys for everything. They've never let me down. So, and they're hella cheap on Black Friday. You can see I have this whole collection of DJ Tech Tools, USB to USB-C, USB-A to USB-B. They basically make all of them, and they work pretty good. So make sure your cables are good. Make sure that your USB hubs are good quality. And none of these will work for DJing, though. So I have a special one that I use for DJing. But I want to now kind of switch over to the desktop view so we can go inside the computer and show you guys some of the things in the computer that might be helpful. So bear with me for 1 second while I switch modes. I'm going to put this bad boy right here. Chuck. So yeah, this is why this is dope. See the wireless camera, wireless mic. Let's switch views to desktop mode. So the first thing we'll do is go into system report, because I want to show you guys what that looks like. So you go to about this Mac, you go to more info, and you scroll down and you go to system report, and then you go here to USB. So let's go to USB, and here we can see in these trees how many different USB devices are here. So let's make this a little bit bigger so you can read it. So you can see that the display, because this is an older display, it is only USB 2.0. So the display USB ports, I reserve those only for MIDI. They can only send MIDI in and out. They don't have enough capacity bandwidth to send, like, for example, a sound card through it. So I don't use the cinema display for that. You can see here it says Apple Thunderbolt display, and the display gives me a camera. It gives me a microphone, which I don't use either because they look booty. But then it gives me the USB 2.0 hub. You can see here I have my Ableton push, and I have another MIDI controller connected to it. And then you can see my second USB hub. So that's connected to the Thunderbolt port of my first USB hub. So the one that's on the display. My second USB-C port. So you have to always remember that your MacBook, it only has 2 USB-C ports. So you can only run 2 hubs on it. You can't run more than 2 without it having some kind of issue. So the display is 1, and that does the display plus USB ports plus FireWire that I use for a hard drive. And then the second port, I have what's called a power delivery port on it. So most USB hubs, like this guy here, will have a USB-C input right there, and it's labeled power delivery. What that means is that I can plug my charger into the hub so that it can charge through the hub, but also I will utilize the ports that are on the hub. This one is not a good one, but the one I'm using now is running my sound card. It's running another MIDI device, and two other MIDI devices. So we look here on the USB device tree, we can see USB 3.1 bus. And when you buy a new USB hub, you have to make sure that it actually says that. Otherwise, it won't be compatible with things like a sound card that's 192 kilohertz or stuff like that. So mine is a USB 3.2 hub. You can see I have my Akai APC40 and an MPK Mini connected to it right here on the menu. You can see that. And that's important. That's how I get my machine to connect to all my peripherals. Now, if I want to go DJ, I just come here, shut my computer down, and disconnect two cables, just two cables, and this entire setup is disconnected. So I don't need to be plugging a bunch of stuff in and out every time I come to the studio to edit a video or a picture or to do some live stream or something. I use this for a lot of different things other than DJing. I don't ever DJ on this desk. I just use it for production purposes, making music and stuff. So if you've got a studio and you want to use your MacBook for both things, DJing and studio, this is the way. You're going to need at least a USB hub, some other monitor device. If you have an iPad, if you have an iPhone, those are great because you'll get continuity. But yes, that kind of covers more or less how to use a MacBook Pro, both for DJing and for studio use, right? So now we can maybe transition over to how to use it for DJing. So let's do that. I'm gonna switch screens real quick. Bear with me. Boom. So let's walk this over to the DJ booth. So this hub is sick AF. I'm gonna turn it on for you guys to check out. I highly recommend it. Here's the box for it. It's called the Dock Case 6-in-1. Now, I've done a lot of DJing where I have a lot of gear that is what I call modular, right? So I'm not a fan of all-in-one units. So I've got CDJs that are in HID mode. I've got a Serato integrated mixer. I've got a secondary effects controller, another CDJ. And I want to plug all this into my laptop so I can do video DJing. And at the same time, I want to be able to run visuals out of HDMI, and I want Ethernet. I want everything. So this hub is literally the only one that I've proven can do all of that. I use it quite often. It's got HDMI out. It's got power delivery in. It's got USB-C out. It's got traditional USB out. So right now I have it wired. So you can see every single port is being used. And right now I have it wired so that I'm receiving data from everything. And you can see that in order to plug into my laptop, there's two cables. That's it. Two cables go to my machine. And that plugs in that entire rig with just two cables, with video DJ and everything. And my MacBook M1 is able to run all of this flawlessly, given that you've chosen the proper MIDI channels. And also on one CDJ, you're going to have to switch to channel MIDI channel 2, on the second one, MIDI channel 3, etc., etc. You've got to change the MIDI channels and everything so that it works, except for your mixer. And very important for DJing, always connect your DJ mixer or sound card or whatever produces the actual noise directly into your machine. Do not use a hub. So the hub does everything else, but one of these cables goes directly to the mixer. That's super important. One of these cables goes directly to the mixer. I'll repeat it again. And that's important because you don't want your mixer going through a hub. It could add latency. It could have USB dropouts. Who knows? It'll just slow your audio down. You don't ever want to do that. You want to make sure that you have a high quality cable when you're doing that. But yes, you need a proper USB hub for DJing. Typically, this is the one I carry in my bag. So when I pack this up, I'll put this in my bag along with all these cables, and they all live in my bag happily. And that way I don't have to keep disconnecting and connecting shit. Because over here, I've color coordinated it and made all this purple so that I know. And when I put my MacBook here, all I do is just plug in two cables, one hub, one display, and it's good to go. It'll charge. It'll give me my wireless mouse. It'll work here. I can do my OBS studio live streams. I can do my music editing, producing. I can do everything here, and everything's wired in. And so yeah, I can do an in-depth video on how to run a small studio if you guys like. This is like part one in a series I want to bring back on DJ tutorials. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. What kind of hubs have you tried? What works for you? This has been the better setup for me at the moment. If you know, if you're using a MacBook, you gotta have the M1. Anything Intel is no longer gonna work for DJing. So that's already off the bat. If you're DJing in 2025, you have to have Apple Silicon chip machine, and you've got to have a decent USB hub. You got to have a real good hub. Don't get any of these that look like this. These are very common all over Amazon. Don't get any of these bodies. Get that guy, the U green with the little corrugated aluminum and the little LED light. That one's legit. That one works. Or buy two of these guys if you're a baller. They're like $100, but they're 100% worth it. They even give you live LCD information. You can see it on there. It gives you all the connections, and it tells you if something's live, if there's an error, if something's not working right. So, I mean, you cannot go wrong with that, you know? So, yes, get yourself a nice USB hub. Get a display that has a Thunderbolt because they're hella cheap. Or use whatever monitor you want and use the HDMI output on the hub. But I prefer to do it this way because it's just integrated better. I use the iPhone. You can see that I'm using the iPhone for a camera. And you can use your iPad as a secondary screen. So let's look at what that looks like, setting up an iPad on secondary screen. So I'm going to give you guys this angle for you to see. I'll go to screen mirroring, Rick's iPad, and we'll just turn it on. And it's on. And I'll just click screen mirroring. I'll click my iPad. Oh, I'm using the phone already. Yeah, you've got to play with it to get it to work. Oh, I'm getting a phone call. But anyways, yeah, let me know what your thoughts are. I have a list of stuff I wanted to kind of cover. Let me see if I went through all my bulletin points correctly. Shaplam. Let's see. So, yeah, old hubs that are whack are faulty because of the built-in cables. Oh, that's important to note. If you spend money on the dark case here, on this bad boy, it doesn't come with the fucking wire attached to it, this little flimsy wire. So you can use any USB-C cable. I hate that the wires are attached to these things, you know. So if you hate that too, spend money on a nice one, you know. But yes, that's important. Make sure that it's a USB 3.0 hub. Go into Device Manager, check that. Use a Thunderbolt display if it's convenient. Get the U green one. That's a good one. Get an official Apple adapter for Thunderbolt, or if you're going to use an iPad, whatever you're going to use, make sure you have official Apple adapters. If you're going to do podcasting, live streaming, and stuff like this, if you've already got an iPad, you already got an iPhone, use Apple Continuity. It's legit. It works great. The camera looks great. Everything works great. And if I go onto my Windows setup, it's way more complicated. I got to have cameras. I got to have all this whole other rig just to get that going for podcasts. Yeah, make sure that the hub that you're using for DJing can actually run all the gear that you want to run. Don't ever plug your mixer directly into a hub. Always plug your mixer that produces audio or sound card directly to the machine. That's important. Yeah, so I think that covers it all. I'll make another video on how to do podcasts, how to do video DJ live streams, but stay tuned. Peace out, y'all.